Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. I don't know what I need to say back here. Testing 1 2. That better? Right outside. That better? In Matewan, West Virginia. All right, folks. This is going to be the second in our Mind Wars Book Talk series, and we've got a special event for you today with author Cora Hairston. Just a couple of housekeeping items. We've got some coffee, some drinks in the back here. We've got some pizza ready to go whenever we get more into the craft stuff. We've got some crafts and a scavenger hunt planned for the children after the reading. So definitely stick around for that. I want to take a moment to thank the West Virginia Humanities Council. Without their financial support, this event and this series would not have been possible. And if you're interested in chatting with Cora, purchasing any of her books or CDs, we have a table with those over here on my right, your left-hand side of the room. And I'd like to take a moment to introduce Cora Hairston. Cora has had quite the amazing life and an amazing career. She retired from Logan General Hospital as the radiology coordinator after 30 years of service. She is a poet. She has written numerous poems and 20 or more gospel songs, so a musician, singer as well. Her love is singing, playing the piano, going to church, and preaching life lessons to her grandchildren. Leading up to her retirement, so that she would have something to occupy her mind outside of home, she was encouraged by her daughter Amanda to return to school and become a nail technician, which she did. This led her to be the owner-operator of her own salon and eventually a ladies' boutique. Cora and her husband Fred are the proud parents of 4 children, 7 grandchildren, 1 deceased, and 4 great-grandchildren. They currently reside in Omar, West Virginia. So without further ado, Cora, the floor is yours. Well, I'd like to say good afternoon to everyone. Glad to see such a nice little crowd out on this rainy Saturday, which is usually 80 or 90 degrees by now, but so pleasant a day. Driving over from Omar, where I live, I was surprised when I got to the top of the mountain at how smooth sailing it was. I haven't been in Matewan in quite a while. It has grown a great deal. I'm honored to be here with you this afternoon, and I hope you enjoy what I'm going to read to you from my first book. Now, as he said, I've written many songs and poems, and I never thought I'd write a book, but I think everyone has a book inside of them. Just happened to be at a reunion that was of the black school that used to be in Logan called Aracoma High School. We had an annual reunion somewhere, anywhere, everywhere in the United States where there was a chapter. This particular year, it was in Columbus, and we were reminiscing, us girls sitting at the picnic table, and we were talking about the days of old. And somebody said, somebody ought to write a book. I said, I'm going to do that when I get back home. Had no idea how to start out. So I thought, well, why not start out at a young age? So this is the story of a coal miner's daughter on the black side. She's 5.5 years old, nosy, thinks she has the skinny on eavesdropping, can't keep a thing, tells everybody's business, doesn't understand it. So we're going to start with chapter 1, which is titled, My daddy's love. Now, there will be some dialect that you'll say, what is she saying? Well, as a Southerner, as my parents or the parents of this little girl were, they didn't say this, they said this. They didn't say that, they said that. They didn't say you, they said yeah. You know that old country talking, down south. So you're going to hear it in proper term and in good old Southern term. Chapter one, My Daddy's Love. This is the little girl, 5.5 years old. Look, sitting over there, beauty. Sitting at the kitchen table with my chin in my hands, watching my mama, Tithia, work her magic. Knowing I was getting ready to get my grub on, I looked up at the clock and panicked. Run, Junior, run, I screamed. The man trip is coming out of the hole. Junior flew around the house from where he was helping our older brother Russell churn ice cream on the back porch and joined me as I was already running down the hill. My daddy was coming home. Callan Mickens. Yep, that's my daddy. I ran as fast as my little legs would go. It was the heart of summer, and I was huffing to greet my daddy, who was coming home from another hard day down in the dark pits of the coal mine. He always saved something from his lunch for us, and no matter how small it was, we shared between the two of us, my brother Junior and me. Russell was 15 years old and felt he was too old to act like a kid. So it was just that much more for me and Junior. Junior is 10 years old, almost 11, and I am 5 years old, going on 6, and smart too. We both had birthdays coming up. Our big sis, Evelyn, she was too old to care about silly things like that too. She was in love and getting married. There were 6 children total, 4 boys and 2 girls, and I was the BABY of the brood. There were only 4 of us at home now. My 2 oldest brothers, Oscar and Frank, were married. At least I think they were. They had 2 old bags they lived with, and I couldn't stand neither one of them. But never mind, I'll get back to them later. Daddy was walking down the hill with the rest of the men, grinning from ear to ear. I could only see the whites of his eyes and his big white teeth, as he, just like all the others, were completely black, covered with coal dust. You couldn't tell the white men from the black men until you got close to them or heard them talk. But me, I would tell my daddy anywhere. I knew my daddy. The men from different parts of the world. Daddy said some of the white men were from Poland, Germany, Yugoslavia, and other strange places. And he could hardly understand them because they spoke very little English. His other white buddies just had that hillbilly slang that stood out from the southern drawl of my daddy and the other black men. Everybody was unique in their own way. We were the apple of daddy's eye, and we knew it. Run, Clarby, run! Ludy screamed as loud as she could, urging me to catch up. Ludy was my very best friend in the whole wide world. She's sickly. She was born with some rare disease and had been sick all her young life, only having gone to school for 2 years. But she was smart as a whip. She would read to me all the time. I didn't know what was wrong with her, but I didn't understand what they meant when I was told that she might not live to be an adult. When the grown ups were talking about her, everyone would hush and change the subject if I came around. So I just ignored it, I guess. Last one, there's a snail, Junior yelled as he ran ahead of me, grabbing Daddy's lunch bucket. Daddy's lunch bucket was special. I made sure it was clean every day after we ate the morsels Daddy had left. Thithia made sure that she packed extra just for us to have. Daddy's bucket consisted of three parts: a tin top on top of a tin tray for the food, that sat on top of the tin bucket for his drinking water. The lid fit tightly over the tray and the bottom so as not to spill the water. Daddy said, "Hello, son," patting Junior on the head. When I finally reached him panting, I wrapped my arms around his leg and clung while he said the words that were magic to my ears. "Hello, Princess." "Hi, Daddy," I said as he dragged me all the way home to the steps. Then and only then would I let go of my daddy's leg, my hero's leg. He was small in stature, but he was a giant to us, and everybody knew he did not take no junk. Calvin Mickens made it plain and clear that there were three things that belonged to him and he didn't mess with. You didn't mess with his children, his money, and his wife. In that order. He worked hard for his family. Thithia was standing on the porch. Thithia is her mother, wiping her hands on her apron, waiting for Daddy to come up the steps as she did every day, winter and summer. He always looked at her with love in his eyes as he gently kissed her on the cheek and said, "Hi, honey, babe," her pet name for her. She also replied, "Hello, handsome," as she took his hard hat. They went into the house, and me and Junior, we stayed on the top steps and ate our snack. Well, Daddy beamed as he looked up and said, "Hello, son." Russell, standing in the door about 6 feet tall. My big sister, Evelyn, whom we called just that big sis, was in the kitchen getting supper ready. "Hey, Daddy," she said, grinning from ear to ear and giving him a peck on the cheek. "We got supper already and some homemade ice cream to boot," she said. Daddy went to bathe. "Now that sounds good, big sis. I sure can use that cold ice cream today. Wee, it's a scorcher out there." And Thea replied, "Sure enough is." I'm going to skip over and go to coal miners talk. Now, some of you youngsters may not realize what coal mining talk is, but this is a gathering on the front porch as Mr. Mann, who is my sister's husband now, Big Sis, and the baby came to the house every chance they got, sitting on the front porch with Daddy talking about the mines. From time to time, my older brothers would come as often as they were allowed to, as their mates wouldn't visit. My brother Oscar asked Daddy, "Oh man, do you think that top is safe enough?" Daddy replied, "Son, it's about as safe as you make it." "Yeah, I guess you're right about that," Oscar replied. Daddy said, "Boys, you gotta look out for your own safety. So don't slack on your job and make sure that the man working with you ain't slacking for show. I hate to say it, but I was afraid something gonna happen one of these days. Yep, something bad." Mr. Man was called a loader. He loaded the buggy or scuttle car. Mr. Man said, "You know, the coal mine is backbreakingly low. Low coal. It ain't that the work is so terribly hard," he said, "because it's a fair living. About the only decent job around here, a black man. So you just in a strain all the time. And the darkness makes it more dangerous." Frank said with a sadness, "Man, that dust is so thick, and you're breathing it in all the time. Can't be good. Every man that comes out looks the same, covered with coal dust. You can't tell who's who behind the dust." Daddy said, "Boys, something's got to be done about that dust. Don't it's going to kill us all." They stopped talking for a while and let their minds wonder about the unknown. Listening to them talk made me respect Mr. Man more and more. I was beginning to feel him just a little bit. I'm a hard nut to crack. The men continued long to the evening. Big Sis and Thithia headed to the kitchen to make a snack and drinks. Me and the boys off to our rooms. Sometime we would be joined by the miners for the evening talk of coal mining talk. It was their life. It was their love. Love has no color. That's chapter 13. Jerry and Junior had become buddies during the years. My Thea worked for the family as their cleaning lady, babysitter, cook, you name it, until I came along. And she said Daddy told her she didn't need to make it too hard on herself with two little ones. I think Jerry was my first heartthrob. He would always brought me candy or something when he came. Thea would take Junior to work with her when she was little, and he and Jerry had played together while she worked and Jerry's mother was a school teacher. The boys had remained friends all through the years, even though they were from two different worlds. They didn't see the difference in their color. As they grew older, even after Thithia had stopped working outside the house, Jerry's mom would drive him up to the foot of the hill and drop him off so he could play with Junior. But Junior never went to Jerry's house to play. It was never mentioned why. One day, Jerry came to the house very upset. He said that they were moving to another state. His father had been transferred. He was heartbroken. He and Junior played their last days of cowboys and Indians in the backyard and around the house, as they were not allowed to go off the hill to play. Stern orders from Jerry's mother. As the evening passed, and just before Jerry's father came to pick him up, they made a pact, a blood oath. They each very lightly nicked one of their wrists, one on the right, the other on the left, and mixed their blood. Blood brothers forever, they vowed. Junior brooded over Jerry's leaving and got all of the attention. He was loving it. There was a large slate dump that smoldered all the time above the road that was behind the row of houses where Ludi lived. It was on top of the hill and didn't seem to be a threat. Ludi took me walking up there almost every evening when it wasn't too cold or too hot. While we were walking, Ludi would tell me about heaven on that dark dirt road. Her stories were so mesmerizing. She would say, Clarby, there are angels all around us, even though we can't see them. And one day I am going to be one of the angels watching over you. I said, Ludi, how can you be an angel? I can see you. She would say, you'll understand it better as you get older. Clarby, she said, I'm going to where I'll have a new body. I'm going to run and play and jump rope and everything, she would squeal. I said, oh, Ludi, can I go? Please, can I go with you? I'll show you how to jump. Hot pepper double dutch and. No, no, Clarby. As we stopped walking, taking my hands in hers, she said, you have to stay here and live on. I'll see you when you get there. But right now, just enjoy each other, okay? Okay, I said, as we started to walk again. But I didn't quite understand why she wouldn't take me with her to this wonderful place. She even said she'd be flying. Gosh, I want to fly, Ludi. You will someday, Clarby, but it's not your time yet. But Ludi, I don't know what you mean. She said, I know, but you will later, when you get older. You will remember. Remember the scripture I read to you where Jesus said for you not to be troubled or afraid, and how he has already gone there to get our mansion ready? I said. Well, Clarity, he's really working on mine, and it's almost complete. And it's beautiful, with streets of gold, gates of pearl, and on she went. Excited, I said, Ludi, As I interrupted her, I had an enlightening thought. Ludi, when I get there, will I have to empty the slop jar? Ludi burst out laughing. Oh, Clarabee, baby, you're the only thing on this great earth that would make me laugh till I hurt. She was bent over with laughter. I started laughing with her. Whee, she said, catching her breath. You'll understand it better as you grow. Now run along. I'll be on the porch. Go hide and seek where I told you to hide. We turned around because Ludi couldn't walk very far. So off I went flying with my little legs going as fast as they would go. Looking back at Ludi, who was taking her time walking and waving at me and still laughing, I thought to myself, is this how it's going to be when she goes away? She'll just drift out of my sight as I run ahead in life. The wooden throne. Our outside toilet was as clean as the house itself, because Russell and Junior had to scrub the porches and toilet every Saturday with lye water. They would be mumbling and grumbling and scrubbing. Thithia was a drill sergeant when it came to cleanliness. It seemed as if I was always the first one to have to do the honors after it was clean and dry. I loved doing that. Junior would scream, Thithia, Clary's trekking in dirt. We just cleaned it. But, Thithia, I gotta go real bad. I was a little menace and knew it. Junior would call me a little spoiled brat. As I stuck my tongue out at him going into the great wooden throne, door was still a little ways from the house. The Sears catalog was our friend. I would look at the pictures I set on the round hole that was the seat and pick out the clothes and things I was going to buy when I got the money. After I did my business, I'd tear the page out and wipe my little bottom. Rough, rough, rough. But who knew? There was nothing else. It was a luxury we could afford. Big and thick, and it lasted a long time. But then there was this little white throne called a slop jar, our inside toilet. It was kept clean as a whistle, too. And I learned very early that it was my job to empty and keep it clean daily. It was emptied every morning and brought in the house before dark from the outhouse. Buster and Junior had made sure that the old mop and a bucket of water was sitting close by. So if necessary, I could well, you get the idea. Ugh. The only good thing about that chore is that when I would spend time with Little Red, who was growing like a reed, Little Red was my best little piggy. Here they come, hollered Junior, the honey dippers. They were coming to clean out the toilets. Everybody in the community had been waiting on them as the holes were getting pretty full. I had asked Daddy a million zillion questions about the stuff. Well, stuff wasn't exactly the word I wanted to use, but I knew it was the only one I'd better use. Baby girl, he said, you're gonna see a change. Not exactly what I wanted to hear. I wanted to know where they were gonna take the stuff. How did they get it out of the hole? Could they find my teddy bear that I dropped down in there? Dad always said that they sometimes covered the old holes over with heavy rocks and plenty of dirt and patted it down. Then they would dig another hole and set the throne over it. Okay, already. This was my very first time, and I was curious and very nosy. Hmm, no wonder our garden was so beautiful and full every year. Living for the weekend. Friday, miners' payday and party time. Daddy would go to the company store upstairs to get his payroll office to the payroll office and get his payday. Some men wouldn't have a payday to pick up. because they had spent it all at the company store. So they had nothing. But nobody went hungry, and everybody pulled together, borrowing a cup of sugar or flour across the fence, just whatever to make a meal. We were a happy community, and the grown ups seemed to have a lot of fun. They prepared for the weekend, holding conversations across the road and over the banisters to their neighbors. Yeah, child, Miss Nellie would holler. I'm coming as soon as Slim gets home. The Friday weekend party started when the man trip emerged out of the tunnel, and the women knew their men were coming home. The man trip was the coal car that carried the men in and out of the mines. That's what my daddy told me. The men coming down the hill seemed to be happier on paydays, laughing and talking, eager to get the weekend started. The children ran to meet their daddies. The wives started up the record player. The fresh fish truck had run, and fresh fish was frying in every house, smelling good. Mr. Bob had brought his weekend delivery of homemade moonshine, so the party was on. My little community was a partying, card playing, church going, good time place. The card players would go home from house to house, depending on whose house was having the game called Pitty Pat. Thithia and Daddy loved to play cards. Sometimes some of the gambling men wouldn't even change out of the bankers the whole weekend. They would go home, eat, and hurry to the house where the game was going to be so as the one to be the first to play. Sometimes the games went on all weekend long. The men, one at a time, would take turns snatching a nap in their bankers behind the stove. The women would lie across the bed. The house lady would sell sandwiches and drinks. The women who had kids went home only to cook and feed them and were right back at it. This went on sometimes until late Sunday night for the men. The women seemed to give up on Sunday morning because Sunday was worship day. They all went to church. Some of the men who went to church would leave the game in time to get home, change clothes, and right back at it after church was out. The rest of the men, including my daddy, would just go to work as they had left on Friday if the games lasted that long. Get it, girl. The women would drift off one by one. Get it! Somebody would holler when Miss Nitty started to dance. Mm. Well, she had a behind as big as a number three tub, and she would roll it like nobody could. That's what they call twerking now. Let you know there is no dance that's new. She was famous for what they called riding the mule. Man, the floor would clear when the music got her riding the mule. She would reach down and pat the floor with the palms of her hand and roll that big tub around and around and up and down. The men who thought they could dance would try to keep up with her. He would be humping and bumping and sweating. We would be upstairs in my room looking down through the vent, as my room was right over Tithia's and Daddy's bedroom, where all the dancing took place. Junior and Russell would move me out of the way and take up the whole little vent. Well, I just do my own little thing imitating Miss Nitty, riding the mule. She had nothing on me. Sit your fast tail down, Russell would say, soft and harsh. I'm going to tell Thithia, as they would go back to looking and giggling softly with their hands over their mouth. When they couldn't hold it any longer, they got up and fell on the bed, laughing and rolling softly so as not to be heard. Then it was my chance to take over the hole and get my eyes full. By now, Caledonia, Caledonia, what makes your big head so hard? Had ended, and everybody was swaying to a slow song. Oh, baby, you done lost your good thing now. Honey child, Miss Nibby would squeal as she wiped the sweat from her brow with her apron. They really seemed to be having a big time, Bud. It seemed as if you were the one that hadn't gotten into the card game. Then you partied until some poor soul went broke and had to get up and give up their seat. The game player, seven players in a game. Somebody would holler out, next, and then the next sucker would run. And the poor sucker who was lost would join in the fun, trying to drown out his or her sorrow of losing maybe all they had until the next time. Daddy couldn't read or write, but he could count like nobody's business. And nobody, I do mean nobody, dared to cheat him. If you borrowed something from him, it was etched in stone in his mind to the penny. And he didn't take no mess about it. I heard him tell Mr. Slim, now Slim, that makes $3. I want my money come payday. Okay, Cal, okay, man, Mr. Slim would say, glad to have the money to stay in the game a little longer. We would finally get tired and get up and go to bed. Junior, hurry up, Russell would holler. Junior, shut up. It was Sunday morning. It was a known rule in the house. Sunday school and church. I would take my bath and get it over with, which was in a new long tin tub. I could almost lie down in it. Clary, hurry up, Russell would holler. Yeah, Junior would chime in, hurry up, shoot. Thea, Clary won't get out the tub, he'd snitch. Clary, she'd say forcefully, hurry up, girl. The boys got to get their baths too. Well, out I'd come passing by them and looking at them with my little sister disdain, with my towel wrapped around me up to my neck. I'd give them a long tongue licking squint up my nose. But this day was my first day in the new big tub, and I was really miffed. So instead of sticking out my tongue, I did the unthinkable. I put my thumb in my nose and gave them the finger wave, just as Thea was coming up behind them. Well, I can only tell you that my little body still being wet, that I longed for that place Ludy had told me about. Please take me away quickly. She's killing me. I tell you, I have never, ever put my thumb in my nose and waved from that day to this one. Thank you, merciful God, for allowing her to stop at the point of what I thought was surely my demise. My two big-headed brothers were savoring the moment, although they pretended not to when they came upstairs. I was still sniffling and snorting. I heard them snickering. I've got good ears. They'll pay, I promised myself. They'll pay. So that night before the party started, I locked my door so they couldn't get in. And they wouldn't dare try to make me open the door as if someone passing in the hallway would see them. Every once in a while, I could hear a soft knock and them whispering, Clary, baby girl, Clary, baby girl, Clary, baby girl, I mimicked. Payback, my brothers, payback. Clary, wake up, it's time to go to school, Thea said. Oh my, it's my first day of school. I'm so excited. I've been waiting for this all day all my life, I think. Thea had bought me a brand new dress, new black and white shoes, and a brand new pair of socks for my first day. She was so excited and crying and saying, my baby is going to school. I can't believe you're going to school. You done growed up so fast on me. My baby, she said as she squeezed me. She plaited my hair in three long plaits, one big part on the side, one on the left, and one to the right, with a part down the middle in the back, and put hair ribbons on each one. She gave me a pep talk and put she gave me a pep talk as we were going out the door all the way down the steps. Russell Jr., take care of your sister, you hear? Yes, ma'am, they replied. Every mother in the community was standing on their porches to see their children off to school. Even Ludy was on the porch this morning, the first day of school. She said, you look so pretty, Clary. Thank you, Ludy, I replied, waving to her as I passed her house. I felt so special, like a big girl. My big sis was standing on the porch to see me on my special day. You look so pretty, Clary, she says. Now remember what I said, what I told you about listening to your teacher, she said. Okay, big sis, I replied. She was so big now that she didn't feel like doing anything. I felt so sorry for her. Oh, well, this was my special day. We had to walk out of the holler to get to our one room school, which were grades 1 through 4. The little school only had little old used desk, a pot bellied stove for heat, and a blackboard. And it had a big old desk in front of the little desk for the teachers to sit at and a cabinet for the books. The first comers had to learn from the older ones to place our lunch bag on the windowsill. Thea had gotten my school supplies from the company store: pencils, paper, glues, and a pair of little scissors. Miss Deskins, our teacher, taught all of the grades, which were divided in 4 rows, one desk behind the other. She lived down the road a piece and rode the big yellow bus up the road to the school. The big kids went about 5 miles down the road to another school, which was the grade school and the middle school. And the older kids rode the same bus about 10 miles to go to the big high school. They got to ride the big yellow bus that was parked at the company store, waiting for them. After my brothers walked me to the school the first day, Russell said, Baby girl, you be good now. Okay, I said, turning and ran to the door of the school. This little nice man, Mr. Luster, a black man. I was confused. I was confused because a white man driving a big yellow truck would come up the holler every morning, all the way to the end of the holler to pick up the white kids. I had seen this bus, it seemed, all my life, coming and going up and down the holler. I wondered why it was never discussed. So it didn't seem to bother us. We had a good time, winter time and spring, walking up and down the road, stopping at the tipple to get a fresh drink of water out of the spigot, playing tag and other games all the way home. We had snowball fights when it snowed. I really liked school. We had to share books, which were raggedy hand me downs, but we loved reading. Run, Jane, run, or whatever Miss Deskin said. Junior hated school. Please sit there. I'll give you my quarter if you let me stay home. I don't know whether I can say this or not. I walked by him and called him a as I passed. Tears falling when he screamed, Thithia, Clary said a bad word. No, I didn't, Thithia. Get on down that road, boy, and you better go to school, she would reply. Junior fussed at me all the way down the hill, and I joined the younger ones who surrounded me. We ran on ahead of the bigger ones, squealing with delight. The one thing that all the kids really hated was going to school on Monday. Blue Monday. How I hate Blue Monday. Have to work like a slave all day. Man, was that a true song. Every Monday, all the kids dreaded coming home from school. It was beginning to get cold, which made Mondays just that much more miserable. Junior and Russell had to wake up early on Monday morning to make a fire under the tubs full of water that they had filled the evening before. There was a special pit that Daddy had made to fix the fire and set the tub on top, sort of like an outdoor grate. It was wash day, and we'd be eating pinto beans and cornbread, as that was the quick meal. The beans cooked all day and didn't need that much attention. Clothes were hung everywhere. Everything. Clothesline was full, banisters, the back, the fence. The house had a damp chill to it because of all the wet clothes. Some took longer to dry. Now I was a big girl. I had to retrieve all the clothes off the line. Junior and Russell brought in the clothes. The only thing that was satisfying about that day was my pretty starched cans. Anybody remember what a can is? You don't see them anymore anywhere. They're beautiful. My mama would starch my petticoats so stiff that they made my dresses and skirts stand out like an umbrella. So pretty. I felt like a princess. I always loved to chomp down on a hunk of starch from the box. Anybody ever did that? Oh, Thithia would proceed to sprinkle the clothes down with water, fold them in shape of dough, place them in baskets. She said that was to season them to make them easier to iron. Sheets, pillowcases, dish towels in one basket, shirts and other pieces and clothes in another basket. I had to match the socks, fold one in another, separate my bloomers, the boys' drawers, my daddy's long johns, and Tithia's bloomers. Man, were they huge. The clothes would be set aside to season for ironing the next day. Thank God I didn't have to iron yet. One of my worst whippings one night, I let Junior talk me in doing the unthinkable. Thithia had company. Miss Nellie, Aunt Celie, Miss Noon, and Miss Sadie were sitting in the kitchen laughing and talking. Junior thought it'd be funny if I put on a pair of Thithia's big drawers and go downstairs acting like I was grown or something. Well, Thithia didn't think it was funny at all. She had me go pick my own poison off the tree. You know what I mean. You think you're grown? Well, I'll show you. She hollered behind me. I was walking slowly to the nearest tree. I broke off the tiniest switch I could. Well, she sent me right back saying, "You don't want me to go get it, do you?" Needless to say, there was some hopping and screaming going on that time with me trying to explain, but she wasn't listening to what I said. Junior was dying laughing. When I finally stopped whimpering, I called him everything I could think of, but it only made it worse. He teased me all evening and told everybody about my fate the next morning on the way down the road to school. I was the laughing stock that morning. Junior had teamed up with the ugly guys and was showing them how I was jumping and hollering. They were having a good old time at my expense. Janice, one of my best friends, turned around swiftly and said very slowly, "Junior, if you say one more word about Clary, I'm gonna beat the holy out of you." The whole group stopped. They looked like they had been hypnotized. Then the boys all started in on Junior, laughing and teasing him about being beat up by a girl. I had the last laugh after all. Junior came over to me and said, "Okay, baby girl, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was just trying to pay you back." Now I'm going to go over to something that's going to be a little heartbreaking. Tragedy. "Oh God," Thithia screamed as the loud whistle blew. She ran to the front porch of all of the other women were running out of their doors. I had been packing to go to Virginia. Down the hill they went. Junior passed us running, hollering, "What's happening?" "Oh God, Daddy," he screamed. The whistle never blew in the middle of the day unless it meant that something had happened at the mines. I had only heard it once in my lifetime, and that was a trial test. But today, it was extra long and over and over. Something had happened. I was praying that one of our men had not been hurt, or even worse, killed. We waited and waited. Cars were racing up the road to the mines. "Oh God," someone squealed. "Somebody's done got killed." Mr. Mann and the other men in the camp that were on the evening shift ran for the hill to the mines. People from up the hollow were running down, and the people from the camp below were running up the road. No one came to tell us anything, so we waited and waited and worried. The women made coffee and brought it out to the people. The people, both black and white, were talking among themselves. After what seemed forever, Mr. Mann and the other men finally came down the hill. walking and talking and shaking their heads. Now cars by now were coming from nearby communities, coming up the road. Everyone gathered at the crow pole. We knew something bad had happened, and everyone was hollering for them to hurry and tell us something. But they stopped at the foot of the hill, talking among themselves, and didn't come any further. Two ambulances were coming up the hollow, sirens blasting. Oh God, what has happened, Napo? Screamed Big Sis, calling Mr. Man's name and holding the baby in her arms as the other children held onto her legs crying because everyone else was by now crying. I went over and gathered them up and took them inside. I'm looking at one of those kids now as if this would be my family. That's my niece sitting there. And if this were true, which this book is fiction with a big twist of truth, she would have been one of those kids that was being held. Mr. Man's name, holding the babies in her arm as the other children held onto her legs crying because everyone else was crying by now. I went over and gathered them up and took them inside the house to calm them down, giving them something to drink and cookies. Little June said, BB, let's go back, pulling my skirt. Okay, little buddy, I said. Okay, but we have to stay on the porch, okay? Okay, those who understood said. So back outside we went. Thithia was praying silently, walking and wringing her hands. I was crying and praying. Lord, don't let nothing happen to my daddy and big brothers and all the others. Thank you, amen. It seemed as if it took forever to get any news. Finally, the shift boss came down the hill, walking very slowly. Mr. Man and the rest of the men joined him as they walked towards the crowd. By now, white women and black women were embracing each other. The unknown was stifling. The shift boss walked up with his head down and took off his mining hat. He looked up and asked if any family members of Mr. John Kirby and Mr. Milton Spokes were there. Everyone looked around, and finally one of the white women said, no, very mournfully, and asked him tearfully, why? The shift boss cleared his throat and said, they are buried under rock, and we fear we that we may have lost them. We're going to try to get them out, but well, just pray for the safety of the men that are going to go in for the souls of our two brothers. That's all. He started throwing out orders for the men to prepare for the evening shift and assist the men on the day shift. Thithia, I cried, where's Daddy, Oscar, and Frank? Honey, they all right. They not the men that's trapped. They have to stay and find the men. We just have to pray. Oh, thank you, Lord. Thank you, she screamed. All the women were now gathering around, wondering which women were the widows, as all of them were crying hysterically. Finally, someone said, they at work. They work down in the 5 and 10 cent store. Oh, God, Thithia screamed when she realized who was dead. Where's Sally's kids? Some of the women took off down the road. Thithia was weak with worry. She went to Big Sis and sat on the porch, rocking back and forth, praying and mourning. The babies all gathered around her, wanting something from Grandma, loving. The babies tried to climb up in her lap. She reached down through her tears and hugged them all. Mary Jane, who lived up the hollow, was a newlywed of 2 years and had no children. She was so jolly and full of fun. Their little house was located on a hill just before you came to the next black camp up the hollow. Friendly beyond words. She was very young and still a child at heart. as she was always inviting us girls in when we passed by to chat and eat. John was so handsome. They were so in love. They reminded us of movie stars. She was so small and beautiful with long brown hair. He would pick her up and toss her on the bed and shower her with kisses in front of us as she giggled, saying, "Stop, John, not in front of the girls." Oh my goodness. What would she do? What would she do? I didn't know the other lady, but I was sorry for her and her children. Our hearts were heavy for their family. The women groaned in pain, crying with relief and sorrow. They got together on Big Sis's porch, discussing what to do when the women got home, which ones would go where so as to be comfort to their white sisters. They wanted to be there for them with the bodies when the bodies were brought out. Solidarity, solidarity was high. Two of our own was gone. It was 3 days before Miner's vacation. No one was in the mood now for the celebration that year usually brought. We had some grieving to do. Thank you. That's just a little. I skipped through chapters to give you some of the long and short of the childhood for growing into a little teenager almost, and to have coal mining. I'm a coal miner's daughter, a coal miner's wife, sister, niece, even my nephew worked in the mines. Coal mining has been my life. And had it not been for coal mining jobs, there would be no West Virginia, especially this areas. We went through a lot. We've been through a lot as coal miners' wives and children, but we are the recipients of those hard-working, staunch men who love to put on those bankers every day and go to work. So let's give our fathers, uncles, nephews, whoever worked in the mines. Thank you.
Let's hear it one more time for Cora. So, if you'll indulge us, I'm going to take some questions from the audience, and I have a couple of questions for myself. First off, you said early on that there in everybody. When did you realize that there was a book in you?
As I stated before, I've always had a thing for writing poems, songs, never a book. Just happened to be at a reunion some years ago in Columbus, Ohio, at our high school reunion. And some of us girls, when I say girls, we're old women then, but we were reminiscing our childhood. And after the discussion that we were having, we were talking about some of the adults who were doing things that they didn't think the youngsters knew they were doing. And we were just laughing about it. Someone said, "What? Somebody needs to write a book." So I took it upon myself to say, I'm going to do that. So when I got back home, it was like a loss was there. The vacation was over, the summer was ending, nothing to do. And I thought, I'm going to get started on that book. And this is it.
Let's see. Does anybody out there have any questions for Cora?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Your story brought back a lot of memories for me because I am a granddaughter of coal miners and a daughter of coal miners, and also a sister of coal miners. So I could identify with when the men got covered up with the rock. that was my biggest fear,
Mhm.
that something was going to happen like that to my
Yeah.
family. So I really enjoyed that.
Glad you did. Thank you.
We have a question over here.
Um, it was just lovely. Thank you for sharing that. I'm curious, like some of those things that you described from the perspective of a 5-year-old, like the discrimination towards Black families, like, was it hard to put yourself back in the perspective of a 5-year-old when now you can really appreciate just what that systemic discrimination was?
Let me explain something. My childhood in the community that I was raised in, which is only about 25 miles, if that, from here, a little hollow called Crystal Block, up the hollow. There were 4 different camps. There was what we call the tipple, then the white camp, then the colored camp was where we lived. The next camp was another colored camp, then there was a white camp. We never thought of color. For some reason, that we knew anybody, they say, I don't see color, well, you're blind. What shirt did you put on this morning? We know color when we see it, but that wasn't an issue. Um, Everybody got along. There was so much diversity. My daddy said the men from these different countries, there was a boarding house. There was a real long house at the end of one of the white camps that boarded these foreigners that were from different countries that were coal miners. And Daddy said they made the best goulash feed they ever eaten. So, I mean, uh, there wasn't any discrimination in that time. The first time, I guess, that I would say that I experienced discrimination, even though, like I said, the school bus ran, we didn't think of us not riding the school bus because it just wasn't something that was done. We didn't ride the school bus until you got down. We walked out of the camp with snow up to here. I mean, love it. And they finally built a shed for us to stand under when school bus would come. But our little school, the black school, was like a little one-room schoolhouse across from the company store, which was the doctor's office, all together. I'd get sick to go there for doctor to give me some of those candy pills they give. Everybody gets sick to go get a piece of that candy. We thought it was a pill, but it was actually candy. But discrimination wasn't anything that I realized until I got to high school, per se. Integration. I was, I think, a second year of being integrated into Logan High. I went to Logan High from 58 to 60. I graduated. And that was the first taste of, there's a difference. That's when it showed up. Other than that, there wasn't. Because the couple, as me thinking back to this couple, the one that I said got killed, this is not their real name, but he actually got killed. And they lived up on a hill, one house, and she just cutest little thing. And we were kids, you know. She was a kid too. I mean, she was a teenager. They weren't very old. But we didn't know she was white. If we did, we didn't think of it. You know, she didn't think of us. We didn't think of each other as having one color or the other, which is a beautiful thing. If we could only do that now, it'd be a much better world.
We've got a couple questions from online. One of the questions is, do you feel like the sense of community has changed over there since you grew up as a child? And if so, how?
There isn't much of a community there anymore. Everything has changed. I went It's been a while since I've been up in the camp where I was raised. But the cemetery that was there where my father, the grandfather was buried, was desecrated. Um, and, you know, we took it to court. They desecrated the cemetery there. Everything's changed. There is nothing in that holler that reminds me, nothing that reminds me of my childhood, nothing.
And then one additional from online was, were the miners, where you grew up, were they UMWA members?
Oh, please. If one mine it struck, every miner poured their water out of that that bucket. Every coal miner struck. It wasn't this mine working in that night. When my daddy came home from a strike, every coal mine closed down. That's how strong the union used to be. Yes, sweetheart.
What is it? You disintegrated me?
What'd she say?
What does disintegrate,
Desecrated.
desecrated mean?
Desecrated mean this particular man was on a bulldozer and he went up through the cemetery, tore down the tombstones and messed up all of the graves. They desecrated it, just upheavaled the dead for my father and loved ones and friends, and even the little girl that I call Ludi, she passed, and that's where she was. And this bulldozer man knew it was a cemetery, or whether my daddy had tombstone, and they desecrated that tombstone. They desecrated the graveyard.
Was that the crystal block?
Yes.
Yes, we heard all about
We've heard about
Yes.
that.
that. Was a good question, Yolanda.
Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you for asking that. That means to tear up something just to make a mess.
And have no respect.
No respect at all.
How long did it take you to write the book, to finish it?
Say that again.
How long did it take you to finish the book?
Well, I've got 2 books. I'm working on my 3rd and 4th book. There is a sequel to this one. This book takes her from 5.5 years old to 15. The reason I cut it off at 15, well, you know why I cut it off at 15. Because she's no longer that little girl. And we talking about color. Did you see color? Well, jungle fever was beginning to start. Everybody heard of jungle fever? Okay. So we changed for the sake of her age and for the reading a little more. Because when I was at the college doing a book reading, and a little 8-year-old, her grandmother bought her granddaughter up. She was 8 years old, and she wanted the book. And I said, "How old is she?" So she said 8. I said, "Well, I would recommend this one." But she said she don't mind. She wants to read. She wants both. Mom said, "Oh, I said, "Now this one's." So she bought both. So it's at the discretion of the parent. They're not salacious. They're just growing pains of a teenager. And the third one, if my husband was still alive, bless his heart, he used to say, I would read to him. We'd stay up 3 o'clock in the morning. He would say, "You still in?" I said, "I'm still in. Let me read this to you." And I'd read him something. He'd say, "Cora, you're not going to put that in that book, are you?" I said, "Mm-hmm." He said, Yeah. So the third one is COVID kind of took my desire for reading. We lost a son to COVID. And, it kind of just changed everything for me. And I just lost my husband in December. So now I'm trying to get back into having something to occupy my mind at night.
Yes.
So I'm working on my book, which will be the trilogy. This is the first, the second. This will be the trilogy. Now, the trilogy is going to be extra special because it's gonna be then, now, and the future, Lord willing.
Oh,
Not Lord willing, Lord willing.
yeah, Lord willing.
Yeah.
We have another question over here. You're fine.
What's your hope for the future for places like Omar?
Oh gosh, the hope of the future for Omar. I don't see anything progressive that's going to come through Omar. Where I live, there's been 3 houses burned down, during the night, while you're sleeping. Well, I think every community has
Yes, yes.
its problem. And I don't see Omar ever in my lifetime blossoming again. It used to be a very vibrant community. Superior Bottom now is nothing but overgrowth. You can't see anything over there, And I think there's one family still living in Superior Bottom. From Crystal Block to Omar to Myco, Switzer, everything's just changed dramatically. I don't see any reviving unless Rick comes through there and does something, brings some business. Now the trail riding, it seems to be kind of making a little difference in the maybe in the wealth of Logan thriving again, but community wise, I don't know. The only thing about it, I ain't going nowhere, and I don't expect my children trying to get some. I'm not going anywhere. Stay right where I am until the Lord says differently.
All right. I know better than to get in the way of people and free food, so I think we have some time for one more question.
I want to ask Pat something. The father of my children grew up with Pat. Next door, was it Sarah Ann or Sterrett? Sarah Ann.
Sarah Ann.
Okay. And the blacks and whites, that camp was mixed of white and black. And everybody loved everybody. Everybody got along. And there was no sense of any racism because I've heard wonderful stories from the Wilders and the McCoys.
That's so true.
They loved each other. And what was so funny, they moved to Williamson. And right after that, the McCoys moved to Williamson and ran into each other at Williamson High School. And they made, well, we're still friends. I worked with those girls forever, but the McCoys remained friends all those years. And so I know a lot of those stories, although I wasn't there, I identified just from what you girls told me about and my first husband. So that was great. And I think the little Lobeda, the community we had here, Lobeda, there was no racism in Lobeda. Everybody loved each other.
Yeah.
Everybody got along. And even in school, we never even thought about anything like that. We just all loved each other and, great. And I wish we could go back to that because my son, when he went to college, he encountered quite a bit of racism. And I just wish it would go back to how it was.
I think God's got a hand in this. We may be not seeing the times. I know that he said, no man knows the hour, not even the sun.
That's right.
But we can tell by the signs. And the only thing that we can be satisfied in is that if we know him, we don't have to worry.
Amen.
It's going to be what it's going to be, and there's no changing it. And he's still in charge.
And he doesn't
And
discriminate.
he doesn't, he's colorblind. Now, you talk about colorblind.
That's right.
He is. But he is the one in charge. And no matter what the outcome of all of this division that is going on,
That's right. You're right.
is
He's
we-
got it all under
he's
control.
in control. We'll see. And we'll accept because he's still in control.
Yeah, I thank God for the way my parents raised us.
Absolutely.
Because he used to tell us all the time, don't look at color. He said, daughter, if you cut yourself, you see what color our blood is?
That's right.
All bleed the same color.
That's
He was
right.
wonderful. And
Yes,
so
he
was
was. And
Llewellyn.
he-
Llewellyn
yeah.
was wonderful.
And my grandparents, my aunt's
Yes.
mom, them, they
Yes.
taught us the same thing. Don't look at color. We love everybody.
That's right. That was it. There was a sweetness there.
Mhm.
Sweet. And that's the only thing. And it's something that I miss for the children. We played outside. There was no such thing as we didn't want to go inside. Even when we had to go, we said, oh,
They had
gotta go
monkeys,
inside.
didn't they?
Now there isn't, you don't hear the joy of children playing outside and playing hopscotch and jump rope and double dutch and all such stuff that we grew up with. It's all gone. Our children have missed a lot, and it's sad.
Well, I think at the end of the day, we all need to take a message from stories like this and the story of like the Union coal miners. At the end of the day, we got to take care of one another.
One another, absolutely.
And I think that's, if anything, that's the message that I
That's
think
it.
we should
That's-
take away from today.
Solidarity is it.
Solidarity forever.
Amen.
Well, thank you again, Cora, for
You're
spending the afternoon with
Thank
us.
you. Thank you
Um,
for asking me. I appreciate it. I really enjoyed this.
We're glad to hear that. Also want to thank the Matewan Public Library for coming in today. Kathi has been a big help getting the word out about this event. She's also provided some crafting activities for the kids. I will also once again want to thank the West Virginia Humanities Council for the grant that helped to fund this book talk series. We've got pizza, soda pops, coffee in the back. We've got crafts. I'm going to hand out some red bandanas for definitely the children, but anyone who wants one. And Cora's got some books and CDs over here if you want to take a minute to talk with her a little bit more. Thanks everybody here for coming, and thanks everybody online for tuning in. Our next book talk is going to be on September the 7th at 1 p.m. featuring Denise Giardina. So you won't want to miss that one. Everyone take care, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.